Right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit more about BLM and the whole stuff going around with it. Again, I'm sure most people are aware. Uh, Chauvin convicted, going to spend, I don't know if it's life, but at the very least a long time in prison. And it's only a matter of time until something else happens and the mainstream media blows it out of proportion, just like they did with George Floyd, or even all the other ones. And we're going to be right back in the mess that we were in last summer, potentially. Um, but I wanted to talk about this, and it's Breonna Taylor's Mother Blast BLM movement. Um, and I don't know what her exact reasoning it is, but I know it's something along the lines of they're a grift, right? The best way to describe Black Lives Matter, the movement, is well, here's the thing: the leaders and the people at the top, they're just grifters, right? They're grifters. I mean, we have multiple examples of these high level BLM people who are using BLM money to buy houses and stuff, right? The one person bought like a third house, right? And again we have multiple examples of this. This is an isolated incident, right? So again, the people at the top are grifters, right? They at the end of the day they don't really care all that much. And the reason why I say this too is this is something that someone could have predicted miles away. Again, Black Lives Matter. Like look at the amount of money they've raised. How much of that money has went to actually improving the black community? I haven't seen literally any of it. Like literally any. I'm sure some of it did, but it doesn't seem like next to barely any. Like again, if they actually cared about this stuff, well, what would they be doing? They'd be trying to prevent kids from ending up in bad situations. I mean, if they really wanted to improve the black community, that's what they would be doing. But they're not. Right? I mean, the entire movement's also based on this idea that um, the police and society as a whole are racist towards black people, which, although I would acknowledge there is isolated incidences of it, as a whole, society is not racist, right? The only legal ways or accepted ways of discrimination that exist these days is discrimination against whites and in some ways Asians, right? You're applying to college, they will your chances of getting in are less likely if you're Asian or white, especially Asian, right? You apply to a job these days, a lot of them ask you your race and all that garbage, right? They're not doing it because they only want to hire white people. I think anyone with a brain should know that, right? So the only ways that we allow discrimination these days are actually in favor of minorities or quote unquote minorities, right? So again, like the entire movement's based off a lie, right? And when you adjust for um, likelihood of committing crime and committing crime, the black prison, the incarceration rate and the getting killed by police rate, it disappears, right? It completely disappears, right? Again, black men are like what 6% of the population of the U.S. and yet they commit, I think it's like 40 or 50% of murders. So yeah, they should be disproportionately in jail, right? Again, the fact that no one brings that up is just beyond me. Um, but anyway, the main point here, like I say, Breonna Taylor's mother blasts BLM, and I kind of went into it, but the main reason is that they're just grifters. They don't care, right? They do not care. And again, like, do I blame these people to some degree? Well, not overly. Like again, like I brought this up a lot before, but if you're dumb enough to give money to someone knowing that they're just going to take it for themselves, or at the very least they're not going to spend it in an overly efficient way, okay, well you just threw your money away, right? You just wasted a bunch of money. Like who really cares, to be honest, right? And that's what these people are doing. They think they're donating to BLM because they're going to end racism when in reality they're doing absolutely nothing. Like again, BLM's been around for what, almost 10 years now. Are racial tensions in better now or better at the time of them being created? Well, they were better at the time of them being created. right? So the point of at least the leaders, right, the people at the top, their goal is not to end racism. If anything, it's to make it as bad as humanly possible. And why is that? Is because they want to make money, they want to be famous, and they want to grift. Now, your everyday BLM supporter, they're just naive enough to think that they're actually doing something to end racism, right? Again, the reality is the average person is just really naive. It's unfortunate, but it is the reality, right? So, um, I think this is really important for people to understand too. And this is the thing, regardless of what you think happened with the whole George Floyd situation, Jacob, like none of those matter, right? None of it matters. I mean, it does matter to some degree, but when it comes to this, it doesn't matter because you can think that the cop killed George Floyd, which I think is absolutely asinine, but you can think that if you want, and still disagree with Black Lives Matter and still think they're not a good organization. That's another thing that I just can't stand about people. And this is another way BLM is a complete joke, is that whenever you question them, they always come at it with the angle of, oh, that must mean you're a racist. But in reality, that makes absolutely no sense. Again, like if they actually had a good argument against that argument, they would just make the argument. The fact that they don't do that um, just goes to show, I believe, that they don't have a good argument, right? Like again, like this is something that everybody who isn't a leftist knows, is that whenever someone is accused of being racist these days, it's almost always because again, there is some racist people, but probably 99% of the time, it's because someone makes a point that usually a leftist can't deal with, and they just throw out the whole racism argument. It's like with the virus situation, again, they don't have an argument, so they always flip it around and, oh, you want people dead, right? You want to kill grandma, when in reality there's no data to back that up when you account for the amount of people that are dying because lockdowns, right? And again, that's a completely different story in and of itself. I'm not going to get into that, but you know what I mean, right? In that, again, like whenever people resort to slander and you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a homophobe, it's almost always because the person they're accusing has brought up a point that they really don't like and they really don't have a good argument for. And like I said, I'm pretty sure pretty much everyone probably knows that's watching. And if you don't, you really haven't been paying very close attention at all to politics over the last while, especially. But Uh, like I said, in a nutshell, BLM is a grift, right? They don't care about racism, and by them I mean the people at the top, and even the people in the middle, right? Like even the people in the middle. Again, if it, let's just put it a better way. Like if they actually, like I said, if they actually cared about helping the black community, the first thing they would be pointing out is the welfare state. The welfare state has done just as much damage as racism has done to the black community, right? You look at I mean, let's just make a simple point. Like, if you graduate from high school, get and keep a job, and wait till you're married to have a kid, your chances of living in poverty go down by, I think the number's 80%. None of those things are that hard to do. So why are we not telling people about this? Well, why they're not telling people about it, I believe, the most likely scenario, the Occam's razor, is they don't want people to succeed. And people say, well, why would that be? What incentive? Well, it's very clear. Politicians have two options when it comes to getting reelected and getting elected. They can buy votes, or they can actually do the grunt work that's required to get reelected or elected. Well, why would you stick your neck out when all you got to do to get elected is promise people free stuff? Why would you risk alienating your base when you can just promise them free stuff, right? It makes no sense, right? So this is the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem with the black community is that, number one, we're not being honest with them. We're ignoring the elephant in the room. That being, the welfare state is doing the vast majority of the damage to the community, not racism, right? So and again, I've gotten into the welfare state and why it's so bad a million times, but it's bad because it basically incentivizes bad decisions. It incentivizes poverty. It incentivizes drug use, promiscuity, basically every negative life outcome, to be quite honest, right? So uh, anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you could do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.